Last year, after I kept the Passover, that was the last time I kept any service, and I was done. I just felt like it wasn't for me anymore, so I didn't go back. So I've been out a whole year now. I started going in like the spring of 2012, and then I was going pretty regularly for a few years. And then towards the end, like for the last 4 or 5 years I was there, that's when I started kind of like missing services here and there. I wasn't really participating in like preaching or any other activities. Like my mental health was not good. You know, I wasn't having the best thoughts. I was like feeling really just anxious and on edge. I was just drained, and I was just tired, and I just didn't really want to be there. And just the whole experience from being there, like something had happened, and I just didn't feel very like respected. I didn't feel like my sister was very respected, and I was just like, this is not the place for me. I don't want to be here anymore. And I got in the car with my sister, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going back. So that's my decision.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm hearing from a lot of members that reach out are communicating that same sort of deal where they just feel really tired and drained, and like even some like anxiety. They just kind of feel on edge about things. I guess what was it like? Looking back at that that last stretch, I guess, of being in there, I mean, can you kind of identify, do you think, what was it that was really kind of making you feel that way?
Well, I've thought about that, and I think that it was just an accumulation of things over time that I had just put in the back of my mind to just not really pay much attention to. And then when I just really sat down and started thinking about like where I was in my life and like how I was feeling, I just wasn't feeling it anymore. I was like, this is like so rigid. I don't feel very free. You know, I definitely don't feel like at peace, like you should feel. If you're, I feel like you should feel at peace if you're trying to connect to a higher power, whether it be God or the universe or whatever it is you believe in. I think that you should be very calm and at peace and just like pretty much worry free. And that it was the exact opposite being there. And so I just decided, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I had actually met somebody, and I was like trying to explain to them like why I don't do certain things. And he just kind of like opened my eyes, like, that is like so extreme. Like, do you really think like a real loving God would actually want you to do that? Like, that's not okay. Like, you need to be able to, you know, it would, in the case it was an eating thing. He's like, I think God would want you to eat. Like, that's pretty extreme. I don't think that that's very necessary type of thing. And then it just got me thinking about so many other things, and I was just like, yeah, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
All just kind of started to unravel, huh?
Yeah, pretty much started to like spiral towards the end, and everything just came together. And like me and my sister talk a lot about like the experiences that we've had there, and there were just so many instances, even from in the beginning, where we should have probably just left. But you know, like I was looking for, like, because I believe in God, I believe in Jesus. I mean, I think that because of this organization, my views have changed so much. But at the time, I was really looking for something to connect to, and they just got me when I was so vulnerable, and I was just willing to listen to them, and they just made it sound like it was so, like there was nothing else out there. Like they were the 100% perfect truth. And so I just continued to go, and I saw the signs, but at the same time, like, I feel like you do a lot of rationalizing when you're in the Church of God. You try to make sense of things all the time because you don't want to be the one who was like weeded out as the wicked. You don't want to be the one who goes to hell. You don't want to be the one who doesn't have enough oil because you don't believe enough. You don't want to be the one who was constantly asking questions because you have a seed of doubt. Like, you don't want to be that person. And so I just constantly was rationalizing, like trying to make it make sense.
Yeah. Well, I definitely would be interested here, like some of the specifics of, you mentioned the circumstances or experiences that you and your sister had that should have, maybe made you leave earlier on. Before we do that, it's been a while, I think, since you initially reached out to me, if I remember right. And that was a while back. And I was scrolling back through my emails and trying to find different members that have reached out that I missed. But I'm just curious, kind of like what do you feel like is kind of your reason for wanting to do an interview like this and to tell your story? I guess, why do you feel that's important for either others or yourself?
Because I just want to educate people. Looking back, I really wish that I would have done my research better. I really wish that I would have, maybe even looked into other people's experiences like I have been doing. Like I was doing a lot more of that back when I reached out to you. And I just wanted to more so make people aware, because this organization, they have a very fine way of just making people want to go, and like just ways of like manipulating people into, getting baptized or not wanting to go to hell and things like that. And I just don't feel like that's okay. And I just want people to know that there's other ways to express your spirituality. There's other, if you wouldn't like to go to a church, like do your research for sure. Whatever organization you choose, even if you do choose to, go to the Church of God after seeing whatever videos you've seen, make sure you do your research for sure. Yeah. I wish I would have done mine and I didn't. And so I just would like to share my experience. And not only that, my experience is extremely similar to the other members that I've seen you do interviews with. And so I just wanted to advocate on that and just continue that so that people know like that this is not like this isn't fake. Like this stuff really happened and it's still happening. And I want to encourage members who are also still in the church that are scared to leave for many different fears, many different reasons. I was there for a long time before I actually decided to leave. I just want to let them know, like, you can do it and like nothing's going to happen to you. Like, if anything, your life is going to get better and you're going to be happier. So just giving them the courage to finally walk away if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, that's good. That's the good encouragement. Because I think a lot of people are on even just the brink of wanting to leave, and there's just that fear of like stepping off the edge into this scary unknown of what's it going to be like, and is this really the truth? People who still have the hang-ups even with all their issues. So I appreciate you doing this, because I think every interview is just another encouragement to say, hey, this is a good way forward. This will not end your life, and as you said, your life in most cases will very likely get better than it is trapped inside of this group. So could you kind of take us back to the beginning? Like, how did you get in initially? What happened there, and kind of like where were you at in your life at that time? To kind of like, I guess, can you look back at that time and recognize maybe why you might have been more susceptible in that time to join this group?
Yeah, so I had just barely enrolled at Salt Lake Community College, and I was a student there. I had been going there for a while. I was about halfway through my associate's program that I was enrolled in, and there was just one day I was just on campus doing my homework in a chair, and these two people came up to, one person initially came up to me and, you know, extended his hand out and shook my hand and introduced himself. I had no idea who he was. I didn't know where he came from. I didn't even know he was a part of the church. And he did this, he had a piece of paper with him, and it was just basically asking about, like, you know, if I believed in God, and, you know, if there was anything that I, you know, had questions about regarding God or, you know, spirituality. There was like, I think there was like 4 or 5 questions. I don't remember. So I filled that out, and then he basically just answered all my questions. And he did, the way that he did it was he showed me a study called The Weeds and the Wheat. And it basically shows, like, it basically answers, well, it's supposed to answer your question of, you know, why there's so many churches in the world, and, you know, if there's only one God, then why are there so many churches? Because that was my question at the time. My big question that I had thought about for a long time before I had even met him was, if there's only one God, why is there so many churches? And so he showed me that study. And then he also showed me, like, why Christmas was pagan and Easter. Like, he had this book with him that, like, had these historical notes in it. I don't remember what it's called. But
was it the evidence book?
Yes,
probably
the evidence book. It was a different version of the evidence book. It was a little bit bigger. And he showed me that. He showed me the second coming of Christ. And after he showed me the second coming of Christ, I was hooked. I was like, okay, who is this guy? Like, where did he come from? Like, who is he? You know, like, I want to know all the stuff. Because I was really, like, wanting to know who God was at the time, because I was just so young and in college, and, you know, just trying to figure out, like, why the world was the way that it is today still. And, you know, like, if there really is a God, then, you know, why are so many people suffering? You know, why are people going hungry? You know, why is there, you know, things in our food that aren't supposed to be in our food that are making people sick and things like that? And so I felt like maybe this church could give me some answers. And,
right.
You know, of course I wanted to go to heaven, and I think everyone does if they believe in that. And at that time I did. And so we ended up talking for like 3 hours. I think I was actually studying for a test, and we ended up talking for like 3 hours. And then there ended up being another gentleman there that was with him that I didn't know they were together until like the very end. And then he gave me his number, and then wanted me to come to the church. And at first I didn't want to go. I was very hesitant. I didn't want to. And I had actually had prior obligations that I wanted to do that instead. And he's like, well, why don't you come after? And I was like, okay, maybe I can make that work. And so I asked my sister, I was like, do you want to come with me? Like, I didn't really feel safe going on my own. Like, I didn't know these people. I didn't know where I was going. And so I went to the church and with my sister, and they showed my sister what they showed me, and she got baptized. And I'm over here like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, this is really crazy. Like, I've never been baptized before. Like, and in my mind, I was like, I don't know if I can make that kind of commitment right now. Like, what if I mess up? Or like, what if I can't, like, you know, like, be perfect or whatever. And so I don't remember when I got baptized. I don't know if it was that night or if it was like a week later or something like that. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. But basically, he just kept showing me John 6:53. I can't remember what that verse says now. It's something about, if you don't have any life in you, basically, if you don't eat Jesus' flesh and drink his blood. Right. And so he basically just kept telling me over and over again, like, see, you need to keep the Passover. You need to keep the Passover if you want to go to heaven. And I was like, oh, no. And then he said, I remember we were talking about the earthquake that's supposed to hit, like the big earthquake that's supposed to hit Utah. And then he said to me, he's like, you want to be protected from that earthquake, don't you? And then I was like, kind of thinking, I was like, well, yeah, but like, I don't know if I want to get baptized. And so eventually I got baptized. And
it sounds like, I mean, multiple of the things you're describing, it just sounds very manipulative and coercive in the way that they were kind of approaching you. I mean, even down to kind of you sort of, communicating that you didn't necessarily want to go to the study. You had other things going on, and it sounds like maybe they kind of kept pressuring you. And then again, it sounds like you were kind of expressing that you weren't necessarily comfortable with joining, and rather than kind of respecting that, saying that's fine. Like, yeah, just take your time and think about here's some information about us. Go and think through it, search it out. It wasn't like that at all. It's like just pressure and fear, and like, hey, if you don't do this tonight, you might die in an earthquake. I mean, how manipulative just from the very, very start that sounds like.
And like looking back on it, like I see that now, but at the time, like I was just like, oh, they're just trying to, save my soul or whatever. And like that's what I thought for a long time. And then looking back, I was just like, yeah, that's not how you would get someone, I feel like, to like join anything, is like by being like manipulative. And I feel like
pushy.
Very pushy. And it just wasn't something that I was necessarily ready for, but I did it anyway because, I was eventually just started to feel scared. I was like, okay, well, I don't want to go to hell. And, what if the earthquake does come or whatever disaster. And like that's another thing that they do is they push disasters a lot to make you want to get the Passover so that you can be protected. And so, yeah, that's how I was like, okay. Yeah, just looking back on a lot of things, I really wish that I would have, been a lot more. I was really young at the time, and I just wish that I would have been a little bit more. I just would have been a little bit more able to do my research on it. And they don't encourage you to do that anyway. They don't encourage you to do your research or look things up online, and they actually tell you not to do that. But that's exactly what you should do if you want to know what you're getting yourself into, because I definitely didn't know what I was getting myself into. And, for a long time, I thought that I was in the truth. I thought I believed everything. I didn't doubt, that, God the Mother was here and that Ahnsahnghong, came a second time. I really believed that they were God. And so, and then just when I stopped going and I found your videos and I started to, see the experience of the other members. And then I actually watched this video on gaslighting, and it just reminded me of, I'm not saying that this is what they're doing, but it just reminded me of like kind of like their approach and like how they make you feel so afraid, like to go to hell. And and I was like, dude, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I don't want to associate anymore. Like I wasn't happy, and that was enough for me to just be done.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to say that that's what they were doing in terms of gaslighting, but I'll definitely say that's exactly what they do. If you express a genuine, legitimate question or concern, I mean, a doubt, something that doesn't make sense, it sounds like you're kind of even expressing that there toward the end. A big part of your hindrance from leaving was just you didn't want to be that person who was doubting, who had the seed of doubt, who had weak faith and all that. And so that's kind of what they will do when people have honest, legitimate questions that deserve a thoughtful and, meaningful response. But very often, rather than actually giving, that sort of response to these legitimate questions, they will try to kind of flip it around and make it feel as if there's something wrong with you for even asking, and make it as if, gaslighting is all about like, making you question your own sanity or your own capacity to, think correctly about the situation. And so, I think that's definitely what they are doing. And I'm glad that you were able to, there at the end to kind of start looking at some of these things. So like that video, was that then kind of one of the, would you say like a big part of you then kind of moving into being more, I guess, serious about the potential of leaving, that watching that gaslighting video?
Yeah, so after I watched that, and after seeing the videos of the other members from other churches on your channel, that like completely pulled the plug for me. Like, and it didn't, and it wasn't a video on like the Church of God or anything that I had found. It was like just a video about gaslighting. And I was like,
yeah,
this is insane. Like, I'm not going back. Like, that's when I already had decided not to go, but I feel like that was at this time where I decided that like I wasn't going to believe anything that they teach either, because in my mind, I felt like, my sister even asked me, like, are you really not going to go back? And I was like, no, I'm not going to go back. Like, I don't feel like God would make me feel like that. Like, I wouldn't feel like this if that was really God. I would feel run down and drained and scared of hell and just fearful all the time, and always feel like I'm doing something wrong and that I'm not doing enough. Like, if this was really God, I would not feel that way. So yes, I'm not going back.
That right there, what you just said is I hope people don't just pass that by quickly, especially if you're a member still in the church at some capacity. What you just said, I think, might seem so simple, but I think it's so important, because you are absolutely right that if this was really God, it should not make you feel the way that so many members feel. I mean, Jesus has that a very, famous verse where he says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest, he says. And his burden is easy, his yoke is light. And so if your experience in, whatever version of church or Christianity you're in is making you feel heavy and burdensome and not giving you rest, not giving you peace, then absolutely you are right there's something very off there. Something is incorrect there. So yeah, I think that's, I'm glad that you were, again, that you were able to see that and not just push it under the rug, because that itself is plenty reason to say, I'm done with this thing. It's not doing what it should be doing for me. When they first approached you and first kind of gave you whatever their spiel was that first time, did they, was anything in what they communicated kind of speaking derogatory to other churches? Did they kind of present a message of all the other churches have gone astray, or we're the only church who has the truth? Was anything like that presented in that initial meeting with them?
I don't remember, but I do remember that is a ton of what they teach, like in Bible studies and like sermons. That is a lot of what they say, is like, oh, everyone is basically led astray. Everyone that's not in the Church of God is led astray, and they're walking the way to hell. They're going to be destroyed if they don't, come to the Church of God and keep the Passover. And I mean, there are other people that would preach like a little bit stronger than, there are things that I wouldn't ever say to people, but other people would be very, like very direct, like, well, if you want to go to heaven, you keep the Passover. If you don't want to go to hell, then this is the way to do it. And yeah, it's just, it was kind of mind blowing to me, because I don't feel like that's how you would, encourage somebody to go to a church. It's kind of like, it's making them feel afraid. But I don't remember if they said that when they first met me. It was such a long time ago. Okay. But that is a lot of what they say in the sermons and Bible studies, and how they present their teachings or whatever they're showing through the Bible.
Right. So obviously your sister ended up joining with you, but in terms of like your other relationships, whether your family or friends who were on the outside still, did your joining the church impact your other relationships?
Yes, and I feel like I wasn't spending as much time with friends or family. I mean, I was in school most of the time, but when I did have if there was a family event on a Saturday, or if a friend had like a baby shower on a Saturday, like I would either have to try to make it in between services, or I couldn't go. And I actually missed my cousin's wedding because it was on a Sabbath day, so I didn't go to my cousin's wedding because of that.
Okay.
And so it's like just the way that they explain, like if you miss a Sabbath day, or if you don't keep a service, then something bad is going to happen to you, or like you're not being obedient and you're not following God's commandments. Like you can't even miss one service at all, ever. Even if you're sick, you cannot miss service. After COVID, it changed a little bit, and they allowed us to keep service at home and stuff. But before that, like there were members going to service sick all the time, having colds and all kinds of things. It was crazy. Um, but there was a lot of time spent at church when I should have been doing my homework. Probably when I should have been spending time with my family. Missing, events with friends. I wasn't able to go because I was keeping the Sabbath day, or I was at a Bible study, or I was keeping third day, or it was during a feast time and it was a 5:30 p.m. Or something like that. So
Yeah. So kind of going back to earlier, you mentioned that kind of even from around the beginning that there were experiences, things that would happen with I think you maybe mentioned both you and your sister that should have probably made you leave earlier. So what were kind of some of the experiences that you had that, looking back now, kind of stick out to you as unhealthy or not reflective of like a healthy church or religious organization?
off the top of my head, I'm sure there's more, but there was one time where I was in a Bible study. This was when I was new, and they teach you that we're here because we're sinners from heaven. Like we sinned against God, and we're here as basically like prisoners, and we need to be redeemed, through the Passover, through God, so that we can go back to heaven. I mean, there's plenty of other things that they teach that you have to do, but that's like in a nutshell what they teach. And so they would basically give examples of, if someone had done something bad in heaven, then the bad things would happen to them on this earth. And one thing, and that's why people suffer a lot, is because of what we did in heaven. That's how they teach it. And so there was a deacon that I was studying with at the time, and he said, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but he said, if someone gets raped, they deserve it because of what happened to them, because of whatever sin they committed in heaven. And I couldn't believe that he actually said that to me. I'm not sure if that's still what he believes now. I don't know if they've changed the way that they teach, why we're here on this earth. I have no idea. But he said that to me. And then I thought, like, I didn't know what to think. I mean, I thought, like, well, I don't want to leave because I don't want to go to hell. But, like, that also doesn't sound right. So I honestly didn't really know what to do. I kept going. And then there was another time where, at the time we were in an office church. That's when I first met them. They were in an office church. They weren't in a building yet. And he got so upset because I hadn't controlled like the songs for the service. At the time, it was like on an MP3. We hadn't had like a piano or anything like that. We were so small and still starting out in Salt Lake City. And he like got so upset that, you know, this other sister was going to have me control the songs for the service because I had never done it before. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but he basically was just saying that, you know, something about like not along the lines of not being respectful towards God because I had not done it before or something like that. But I mean, it wasn't just like talking to me, like, or talking to her. Like, I mean, his face was like completely red. Like he was visibly like very pissed off. And at that time, like, that's like another time, like I should have just left. Like it was very rude for him to do that. And he never apologized for it either. I didn't do anything wrong. She was asking me to help her and I was willing to do it. And like, he just got very upset to this day. I don't know why. But he was just very mad about that. And then, also like there were like a lot of contradictions with like what was said in the sermon and what was being told to us in person. So for example, my sister said that she heard Zhang Gil Jah in a sermon say that our general pastor was one of the two, say that depression is a sin because, you know, you don't want to do anything for the gospel. You don't want to preach. It makes you supposedly lazy. You don't want to do anything. And then another member had told her that it's not a sin. So there was a lot of things that went on like that were very contradictory. Like, so what's being said in a sermon and then what's being told to us is different. And I think that was like one of the biggest things that was happening. I'm sure there's like many other examples, but that's the bulk of what was going on, and like looking back of why I should have left. And
yeah.
I also noticed, and I've also heard, you know, from my sister, you know, how other members were treated. Like there were members that were not like the other members, you know, that were so, you know, perfect looking and, you know, wearing suits all the time and just so, you know, physically put together. And other members that, you know, would like come as they are, they were just not like treated the same. And those are things. I think my sister wants to do an interview with you, so I'll let her speak on those experiences that she's seen some things that she's told me about. And my mom, I didn't mention this, but my mom and my brother were also baptized in the church. My brother left a long time, like years ago. He knew from the very beginning. He was like, yeah, this isn't it for me. And he just left. But my mom went with us up until the last Passover as well. And another thing that happened, my brother, they were out preaching or something over by where the office church was, and there was a homeless man that had fallen off his bike and he had gotten hurt. And I don't know if it was my brother or the other members that had gotten him some water, but he was also asking for some food because he was hungry. And then my brother was like, "Oh yeah, just come to the church. You know, we have some food there." And then the other members were like, "Oh no, we don't do that." So they wouldn't even give him any food, and they would constantly comment on how my brother looked, like with his hair, because at that time he had like a big afro at the time, and he didn't have like the best church clothes at the time, or what they considered best church clothes, and they would always like try to hint to him like what to wear, like how to wear his hair and things like that. And yeah, so it's just like looking at different things like that, different scenarios. And also like there's a lot of, because there's a thing in church where Father's coming soon, right? Ahnsahnghong is going to come back and take us all back to heaven. And so that was like, in my eyes, became like the biggest excuse to like not do anything for your personal life, like not exercise, not like take care of yourself. But then they tell you that you should take care of yourself. But then at the same time, it's like kind of like a waste of time in a way.
Right.
I had a sister tell me one time that she would like listen to general pastor sermons while she is exercising, so it doesn't feel like she's wasting time. And so it's just like, if you're not doing anything besides being at the church, being helpful in any kind of way, or Bible studies, keeping service, like if you're not doing anything church related, and even outside, like in your home, like doing any kind of Bible study on your own, like it's just seen as like, you don't want to be the wicked lazy servant, right? So you're just constantly like studying and being at church and not doing anything with your friends and your family. Like it sucks up your whole life, because you don't want to be the one who's the wicked lazy servant who's not doing anything. And you definitely didn't want to be the one who wasn't doing anything when Father was coming at that moment. Like, do you really want to be playing video games when Father's coming? Like, you want to be the wicked lazy servant when Father comes back? Like, that was something that, myself and I'm sure a lot of other members were very afraid of. And so just thinking back on those things, like I should have left. And like, there were videos that they would show us. There was a video that they showed, this was like the tail end before I left, but there was like the sheep and the goats, and also a video about music and why we should only listen to new songs. I didn't watch them because I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm already traumatized enough about like hearing about like what they think about sexual immorality and all of these other sins, and like it just scares you. And like there's just so many things, like looking back, where I should have just left.
So the leadership, did you ever bring some of your questions or doubts to them? Did you ever try to talk through some of the things you were, some of the things that were maybe pulling you to leave, causing you to doubt? Did you try to get help with those things? And then like, how did that go? How did people respond to your doubts and your questions?
So the first time this happened, we had seen the videos of Stephen Hassan and Diane and Ron. That was like a huge blow up in the church. That was like a church-wide thing, and it even reached all the way back to San Diego. And so they had compiled a video, and we actually stopped going because we saw the videos, and we were like, yeah, let's not go back to that church. Like, we're good. And they actually reached out to us, and I met up with a deacon, and he showed me like the Bible again, and like showed me like, because the Passover was coming up, and he was like, yeah, let's keep the Passover together. And so I ended up going back. But basically what they had done was they had taken, like looking back now, I understand that they had taken clips from Diane's video, from Ron's video, from when he was interviewing with Stephen Hassan. And I went back and I watched their experiences. It's not at all what the video that they had compiled for the church to watch. It's not the same. It's not the same. They painted them to be the most wicked people that you could ever think of to walk this earth, because they had spoken out about their experiences. They were saying that they were like Satan had got to them, and that they were going to go to hell, and like just a lot of things that were absolutely not true. And basically saying that Diane had mocked Zhang Gil Jah. I watched the video. She didn't mock her. She was explaining what was going on a phone call where her questions were not being answered. So it was is very misleading the way they compiled that video. And so because of that experience, when I had my doubts later, I knew in my mind, if I go and I try to talk to them about this, they are going to come up with some kind of reason, some kind of answer to get me to stay. And I don't want to stay. So I didn't ask my questions. I didn't go talk to anybody. I didn't try to vent to anyone. I didn't even talk to the sisters that were closest to me. I didn't want to do it because I knew that they were going to try to get me to stay, because that's what they did the first time when we saw what was going on with Diane and Ron. And so I just didn't want to be wrapped up in it again. And because they always have a reason for something. There's always a reason for something, and I just didn't want to hear it. So I didn't even give them the chance. I just blocked everybody, and I just didn't go back.
Yeah, that's a lot of members. Another common theme I see in a lot of members that I talk to that email me and whatnot, who are kind of on the brink of leaving, but it's as if they feel, and I don't know if you felt this, but it's as if they feel this sense of obligation to the church. They're scared of leaving, because it's almost as if they feel like they owe it to the members or the leaders to stay in. They got to a point, many of them, where they don't believe any of it's true. They know, it's not true for, many of them, and they see the issues, but, many of them will just tell me things like, I can't bring myself to leave. And so I'm not entirely sure what it is that is causes that in members, but, yeah, I'm glad that you with all that, just deciding you didn't have to bring them your questions. You didn't have to give them your doubts. You didn't even have to tell them you're leaving. And I guess that's the thing I hope people would take away from what you're sharing, is that if you're a member wanting to leave. Like these people have no power or authority over you. You don't owe them anything. They are, whether there's, I'm not saying everybody in this church is just evil. I think many of them don't realize what they're doing. But in the end, they are manipulated and deceived, and they are inadvertently trying to manipulate and deceive and control you. And so if you want to leave, do what Sabrina did and leave. Because, again, you don't owe them anything. You don't owe them an explanation. There's nothing they can do to stop you. The only one who you should be considering right now is yourself and your own well-being. And if, like Sabrina's experience, this is, not giving peace and it's not benefiting you, then yeah, I would hope that if, those who are in that place would just follow your example and just get out of there. You don't even need to talk to them. Just leave. So yeah, I think that's I'm glad that you didn't even feel the need to take your questions and your doubts, because like you said, they're just manipulative, and they will find a way to, even if they don't have an answer, even if there's not an answer, they're going to say whatever they need to say to convince you back into a place of fear, or something to manipulate you into staying in the church. And so good for you that you didn't get trapped in that.
Yeah, no, by that time I was done. And, I actually, I had just left it. I was just going to see if anybody would reach out to me. I didn't block anybody for the first month and a half that I had first left, and they knew where I lived at the time. I hadn't moved yet. And after the Passover, I didn't hear from anybody. Nobody tried to call me. Nobody tried to contact me. And I was like, you know what? I don't think you guys care about me.
Yeah.
I feel like you care about your own salvation. And the only reason you tried to reach out to me was so that you could be good and that your duty was done. And I kept the Passover, so now your duty is finished, and you don't need to talk to me anymore, type of thing. And I just felt like they honestly just didn't care. And so after a while, I just blocked them all, and I even changed my number. And like I was just finished. So I hope that nobody feels the need, if they would like to leave, that they need to go and talk to their pastor or their unit leader or a deaconess or a deacon about their doubts. Because like, if that's not a place where you want to be, then what is the point of going to them to ask your questions? Like, that did, then my personal mind, that didn't make sense to me. Like, if I already don't want to be here, there's nothing they could say to me that's going to make me want to stay. So I was just ready to go.
Yeah. And I would imagine a lot of the reason that, I think you're absolutely right that them not reaching out to you, and other sort of behaviors and experiences like that you might have in the church. But that's one of them that kind of demonstrates, I think, pretty evidently that, like you said, they don't, at the core, when all is said and done, they don't care about, the members. And some might, you might have closer relationships that are built, but as a general rule, this organization does not promote or give, unconditional love. And I would think that probably there were, I don't know if you heard, and so I'll let you maybe speak into this, but a lot of members that leave, or probably all of them really, the church, what they will do is spread, the same thing they did with Diane and Ron. They're going to say what they need to say to make you look like there's something really deeply wrong and horrible about you, so that the members then will feel justified in not reaching out to you. And also there's the fear of reaching out to you. The leaders will make members afraid that, if you reach out to them, they're poisoned and they're just going to poison you. And Satan's got their ear now. And so did you hear any of those stories that were going on about you, or did you just cut it off so quickly that you didn't even hear any of that?
I didn't even hear any of that. I don't even know if they're saying anything like that about me. I don't know. I don't even know if they know that, like, I'm just not coming back. I have no idea because I haven't talked to them. I've heard those statements from others, like Diane and Ron, like, say that about them, or people that like protest against the church, or anybody that basically speaks against the church. They're basically Satan. So
yeah.
Yeah, but for me personally, I have not. If they are, I don't know about it. I cut them off before I heard any of that, and I already wasn't going. There was a member just a few weeks ago that actually stopped by my mom's and like dropped off a gift or something, and my brother basically told her like they're not going to go back. So.
Yeah.
So now with them knowing that, I don't know what she did with that information. I don't know if she told anybody that. Now I don't know what they're saying. Usually it's the story of, they fell back into the world, Satan got to them. They wanted to be in the world instead of, come to God or whatever. And another thing they say is like, I remember this because I was in a Bible study. They say that you forget everything when you leave. That you don't remember anything.
Yeah.
That it's like what is it? The Men in Black pen.
Like the minute, yeah, right.
Yeah, like the minute you leave, like you forget everything about the Church of God, and you don't remember any of the studies. Like you don't remember nothing. You don't remember anything. Like how much God sacrificed for you. Like nothing. I remember the studies. I remember how I felt. I remember my time at the Church of God. And I just want to make that very clear. And I didn't just forget. And there's a reason why I'm not going back. So, I don't know what they think about me. I don't know if they are even saying anything about me. I have nothing bad to say about them. I think they're very great people, but I also think that they also need to do their research because they're very misled. Some of the girls that were in the pictures that I sent you, I was very close with some of them. And to me, they were even like my friends. And so it really is like hurtful that I probably won't talk to any of them ever again. But then I just, remember that, they're doing what they want to do. And if they're happy with that, then that's good for them. And, I hope that they actually feel peace, that they don't feel drained or anything. That's really awesome for them. And so, I would hope that they are not saying, bad things about me, because, I'm not saying, I don't think that they're bad people. I don't think they're evil or anything like that. I just think that they're extremely misled, and I understand why, because I was a part of the church. I definitely understand why. But I think that it just comes down to just doing your own research, being a critical thinker and like really asking questions and not being afraid to walk away if that's what you feel like you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So were there, or are there, I guess, any doctrinal things, like some of their teachings that you felt hung up with, that you maybe still thought, well, this prophecy or this teaching still seems like it's true? Or I guess, what's kind of been your relationship with the doctrines of the church since leaving? Have you kind of just wholesale said, I think it's all garbage, or is there some of it that you're still like, what if that's still true, or anything like that, where there's maybe hangups or something of that nature?
I do sometimes wonder. I have wondered, and I've talked with my sister about it. Like, what if there were some of the prophecies that they taught that were true, but they were like not from the Church of God teachings type of thing? Like maybe the fig tree, maybe the teaching, from the church. But what if there was another teaching, about World War II or World War III that's a prophecy in the Bible? What if there is still some truth to that? But it doesn't really have anything to do with the Church of God, and it doesn't scare me to think about it or anything, but I do still wonder, like, what if there were things that they taught that were not originated from the Church of God, that were like real prophecies? That I still don't know. My relationship with the Bible and God it's completely different now. As of right now, I don't even feel like I really believe in the Bible right now. I don't know if I will ever in the future, but I just feel like because of everything that I was taught from them, I just feel completely like lied to and like deceived, and I don't know what to believe. I'm just left wondering now, because I feel like the scriptures have been they've just been they've used them in a way that has just been misleading, and so now I don't really know what to believe. I saw a video on one of the other members that you had interviewed, and basically it's in Isaiah, when it talks about every verse has its mate, and like he was talking about how it's not talking about what they say it's talking about. And yeah. I got my Bible out and I read above like what it was actually talking about, and I was like, oh my goodness, are you serious? Like, how could I not have, like, why didn't I just read above the verse? Why didn't I just do that? Yeah. So it's just like little things like that. So I'm not really sure where I'm at with all of that right now. It took me a little bit to like be okay with that, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I can't look at a Bible without, thinking of the Church of God, because I didn't go to church before the Church of God. I did when I was little, but before them, like, they taught me everything that I know about the Bible, and it's not even true. So I can't, like, even when I think about like the famous verses out there, like John 6:53, or the verse about being in God's image, and how they say that that's talking about God the Mother, or the Spirit and the bride in Revelation. Like, it it all screams Church of God to me right now. And I hope that I can get to a place, where it doesn't, because I have believed in the Bible my whole life, and now I don't. So it's like, it feels like a big disconnect for me. And I was never one of those people that like questioned if God was real, or questioned if Jesus really came to this earth and died on the cross. Like, I always believed in that so much. And now I feel like I'm just questioning like the Bible, and, who were these people really? And like, why did they even write it? And like, just so many questions. And, and if the Bible really was written the way that it was written, then how can you go back and forth and like pick different verses, and how are they supposed to like match up? Like, that doesn't make sense to me now. And it's just a lot of questions. So
one of the things that I think you mentioned is how, they talk about how your life is going to be ruined. Things are just going to get bad when you leave. And so what has it been like since you left? Have things gotten better? Have things gotten worse? Have their predictions that your life is going to be horrible, have those come true? Or what's that look like?
It's not what they say it is. They scare you so much. Like, if you leave the church, it's worse than when you first got here. And like, so many bad things are going to happen to you if you leave God. Like, you're going to be cursed. If anything, my life's gotten better. I've moved. I have a good job. I have so many other like goals and aspirations that I'm, planning for and reaching for right now. And I feel free to do that. I don't feel like I have to constrict myself to keep all of these services and to, give them all of this money. And like, I don't need to even think about that anymore, because I'm free to live my life how I want to live it. Like, I went to Florida last summer, and I've never wanted to travel or been able to, because, what if you miss a Sabbath day? What if you miss a third day? What if it's, you can't make it for the feast or whatever. But now I'm free to like, get on a plane and go wherever I want. It's been awesome being able to, go to my family events that are held on Saturdays, and, hang out with friends whenever I want to. And it's just I feel much better mentally than I have in the 10 years that I went to the Church of God. It's been a huge relief for me to leave. If anything, my mental health was complete crap when I was there, probably the whole time. And when I left, it almost immediately got better. So whatever they're telling people in the church that, was going to happen to you when you leave, it's not. If anything, your life is going to get exponentially better. And I think that it comes with time, though. Like, I remember when I first wanted to leave, I was very afraid because of the things that they would say, and like, the studies that they show you, like what happens to people that leave the truth. And it's very scary to hear, but
right.
It's not true. It's not true. And I think that there are other members out there that have left as well that can attest to that. Your life is only going to get better. You're going to feel more free. You're going to be able to have a lot more time to do what you want. Thankfully, while I was in the church, I continued my schooling. I continued to do the things that I did like to do, but there were still some things that I wasn't able to do. And I'm able to do those things now. So it's been awesome.
Good. Yeah, so they tell you all about all the supposed bad things that will happen to you if you leave the church, but what they neglect to mention and what members should think about is what about if you stay in the church? What about all the crap that's going to happen to you if you stay in? You're worried about these earthquakes and disasters into the world experiences that happen outside of the church and for the most part never happen. But what about all the terrible experiences that happen to you while you're in there? And so they can say all day, your life's going to get horrible, you're going to be cursed, whatever, if you leave. Well, maybe consider, like, are you are you really much better off where you're at? Do you really feel like what you're experiencing is different than being cursed? Do you really have peace? If your experience is anything like Sabrina, then it sounds like you might be better off on the outside than what you're dealing with inside of this church. So
yeah, you already sacrificed so much of your time, your finances, some of the things that you sacrifice while you're in that church, you're never going to get it back. So you don't have anything to lose by leaving if that's what you're thinking about doing. And it's been awesome for me personally, and I hope that anybody that is wanting to leave can just remember that you're safe, like nothing's going to happen to you, like all those disasters that they talk about, and like World War III, that was a huge reason why I was so scared to leave, because of World War III and the disasters. And I got to the point, I think I heard another member say this, like that they had to be comfortable, like a person that you had interviewed, that they had to be comfortable with the thought of going to hell to be able to just leave. And like I feel like that's where I got to, is like, okay, well, if that happens to me, if that's what God's choice is, then that's what God's choice is. But I can't stay here anymore. Like, it's ripping apart like who I am as a person, my mental health. Like, I can't even be myself in this church. Like, it's very draining. And so, like, if you want to leave, if that's what you're thinking about doing, I encourage you to do your research, and if you have your reasons and you're ready to walk away, then do it, because your life is only going to get better.
If this church is telling you about the end of the world and World War III and all these terrible things that are going to happen in the future, and that is what is motivating members to stay, I hope members would, like you've been encouraging them to do, just take some time and do your research. Why believe the predictions of a church that you can look at their doctrines, look at their supposed prophecies, and find contradictions and holes and problem after problem. Ahnsahnghong, who made multiple failed predictions and prophecies, just this group, if you actually look into it, and there's really helpful websites like examining the WMSCOG.com, which I link to, try to always link to in the description of the videos, but there's a lot of good resources out there. And so if it's fear of the things this group is telling you that's keeping you in, well, just go and do a little research and find out if this group is really worth believing. Why would you listen to and believe in and fear something that people are saying, if in the end these people are telling lies all day long, and their doctrines are full of lies and manipulation and deception, and if they're not true? So would you have any final thoughts, final encouragement, or just anything you'd want to say to former members, or just in general?
I was there for a long time. I was in that church for 10 years, and I just wish so much that I wasn't. So I cannot stress enough, like, please do your own research. If somebody has preached to you, if someone has invited you for a Bible study, make sure you do your research. Don't just believe everything that they say to you. Please don't believe everything that they say to you, because they're going to tell you about the Passover. They're going to tell you that you need it to, escape disasters in World War III. Like, that's like one of the main things they are going to use to get you to get baptized. And I urge you to do your research. Don't feel scared to do that, because they're going to tell you not to do that, because they know that there's things online that you're going to find. And you should find those things, because it should be your choice if you want to join them or not. It shouldn't be by manipulation or by fear that you join this organization. And so I would just I really encourage those that have been in that are thinking of leaving to do your research and have your reasons. And for those that have just been barely preached to and they're looking for information on this church, do your research, because that's what I did. I didn't fully leave before I had left. I did my research and I continued to find things. And I was like, why didn't I do this before I, threw myself into this? I really wish that I would have done the research beforehand. So that would be my final encouragement is to just do your research. You have to, because if you don't, you're going to get sucked in and you're going to believe everything that they tell you, and you're just going to feel scared, anxious. You're not going to feel at peace. You're going to feel drained and completely exhausted, because in the beginning they just teach you, and then they just continue to pile more on more versus the Sabbath day. Then you got to keep the third day. Then you got to keep all day Sabbath day. Then it's the feast, and it's the Bible studies, and then it's preparation day, and before you know it, you're just spending all your time in this church. And I mean, it's up to you, but I don't want to live my life like that, and that's why I left. And I just didn't want to continue to feel guilty for not spending all of my time there. And it just gets worse, and if you just pile more things on to the duties that they want you to do. I mean, I was in and out of choir, I think like 5 times, because I had no time to practice because I was working, and on top of that, I was supposed to preach, and then on top of that, I was supposed to study, and then it was worse during the feast times because I was waking up at like 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning, to make 5 a.m.s, and there was just no time to do anything. You're just completely exhausted. And so, I mean, you'll see if you decide to go, but I would really hope that anybody that is being preached to right now, that they look into it, just do some Google searches, look on YouTube, whatever you got to do, but make sure that you make an educated decision before you decide to get baptized and join this church.
Oh. But Sabrina, isn't it eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Won't they die spiritually if they go to the internet?
Yeah, they're going to tell you that, and they're going to tell you to not look on the internet, and that it is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and that Satan's going to get to you and all this other stuff. And if you're really spiritual, if you really believe in God and you're really looking for that is going to trap you, because I know that because it trapped me. And so you got to be willing to think critically and be open-minded. And, even if you find things online and you don't necessarily agree with them, or if you have questions or whatever, that's fine. But I don't know that I would necessarily, this is just my personal opinion. If I found something online and you really wanted to go to this church, I personally would not take that information to them, because I can tell you right now, they're going to find a reason to tell you why it's slander. They will. And they'll probably even show you some videos that they have, clipped and put together, as they did when I had supposedly saw the slander, back in 2012. So They're going to find a reason. And, so just be ready for that if you decide to do that.
Yeah. And it's worth thinking about, why is it that they are so concerned with people going to the internet? Why is it that they have to tell these stories, these fear-inducing stories about, it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or whatever it is, that basically if you look up the church on Google, you're basically on a highway to hell sort of a deal.
Yeah.
And if that's kind of the approach they have to people looking into them and searching out the history and the facts surrounding this church, all that says is that they have something to hide. They're trying to hide something. And so, as Sabrina said, do your research, and don't let their lies and their attempts to make you be afraid of doing your research, don't let that get in your way.
Yeah, I I wish that there was a way that I could even educate the people that I've been so close to in the church, because I really don't believe that they are bad people. I just think that they have been severely misled, and it's understandable as to why this information is so believable. But that's why you have to do your research before you get very sucked in and you like give your life away to this organization, because that's what they're going to try to get you to do.
Yeah.
You know, they want to build you up and make you a unit leader and have you teach and, you know, do, you know, all the preaching practice, and it gets crazy. It gets crazy, and it will take up a lot of your time. I've heard stories of, you know, parents not being able to celebrate their children's birthday during a certain time because that was the preaching time. You know, like it will impact your life in a way that you never thought anything would before. So really take your time before you make the decision to join.
Well, Sabrina, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I'm sure it'll help people, and just you being willing to share your story and come out share your experiences. I think that's what just resonates with people who are either have left and are just, you know, just helps them to know that they're not alone, and yeah, so just really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I hope that the videos that I've seen other members do also helped me, and it helped me realize that I wasn't alone, because I thought I was the only one that was like struggling so bad mentally in this church. And then I found your videos, and I realized that I wasn't, and it was very similar, almost exact experiences that I've had. And so I hope that, you know, my story can like help somebody else, even if it's just one person. I hope that it helps someone like make an educated choice on joining this group, because it will change your life in a way that you don't expect, and time is not something that you can get back. So
yeah.
I just hope that people make a very educated decision, you know, especially if they have kids. You know, like I have a very like big concern about kids growing up in that church, because I can only imagine like what it's like listening to sermons like constantly, you know, being told that the world is going to end in World War III and things like that. Like I think that's very traumatizing, and so especially if you have kids, I would definitely do the research.